And he has those newspaper pictures that are different. I mean, he has those plates because he asked the man while he's working there, "You're going to melt these down? Can I have them?" And the guy said, "Sure." And so he got the plates, and of course he doesn't know what to do with them because they don't make newspapers like that anymore. But they're pictures that haven't always been shown.
Well, I'm sure you could try to sell them, or you could donate them.
I think we're thinking of donating them to the museum. We've got to get a value on them, but he wants to do that because he kept them for historical purposes.
I will tell Stephen Fagan about you.
Is that his name?
Stephen Fagan is the person who does the oral histories here.
Oh, great.
And the person who's been helping coordinate things for me to get this room and stuff.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. And I will also figure out a call to see if sometime we can get together.
Okay. It's more interesting coming from the horse's mouth, don't you think? I do. Okay.
Well, it depends. If the horse is a good speaker.
Well, I guess so. I'm kind of partial.
I'm sure. Can you tell me if you ever saw the Oliver Stone film?
JFK? Yes.
What did you think?
It was interesting. I'd never heard all that before. And you could see how that could happen, but I just, movie makers are in the business of developing grandiose theories and stories and putting them to film. So I'm suspicious of its validity, but I think it was well done. I mean, if that was the story, he told it well.
Have you read any books on the subject? Or?
No, I haven't, although I heard something on TV, or was it a video? I can't remember. I don't get into it too much because it's all just kind of grabbing it. Everything's so different, and people come up with these wild ideas, so I kind of discount everything. But I did hear this man who said he worked for the mafia, and he was just past the grassy knoll and was hired to shoot the president, and shot the president too, and worked for the mafia. So, do you know who that was? Have you heard that? You have not seen that?
Well, I have suspicions about what it is, but there's several documentaries.
Are there? Well, it's a kind of documentary, I guess. I don't know how valid it is, but the way he told it, and that could be plausible. So anything could be.
Filmed out here?
You know, I think they showed him on the grassy knoll, or he stood where he was.
Was it called like the Second Gunman?
You know, I can't remember.
Somebody mentioned something yesterday that sounds similar.
And it was very convincing. I mean, it's just like Oliver Stone was kind of convincing. And so he was very convincing. And you don't know if he made it up and said, you know, this happened, like the lady who said she was Anastasia and she wasn't, or if it really happened. But you could see how it could happen.
What things do you think help improve Dallas's image after the assassination?
Oh, after the assassination. I thought you meant now. I don't know. It took a long time. Business. It was well known for business. DFW Airport helped. The TV show Dallas. I mean, some people know about JFK worldwide, but everybody knows about Dallas. They asked if JR went to my church. I said, well, if JR went to church. No, he doesn't. He's a pretend person. But they just, believed it. It's amazing what the media can do. Actually, I was in Turkey, and I was with my mother-in-law, and we were buying a small rug, and the man asked us if we knew JR. And then he said, do you know JR from your church? Because he knew we probably went to church, that we were from the South. I don't know how he knew that, because he was Arabic. And I just looked at him and thought, you've watched Dallas? I mean, yeah. So, which is kind of sad that was our image of greed and corrupt thinking and business dealings. So I never saw the show, so, but I know everyone hated JR and loved the man America loved to hate was JR. So that kind of changed the image of Dallas. And the Cowboys, football, that pro football, that was another image. But it took a long time, I think, for the city to heal from that. I think the two assassins together in the same weekend, I think that really, the first one was kind of, oh, isn't that terrible, and this happened in Dallas, and why did it happen? But I think almost any city could picture that happening. But the second one, of Jack Ruby walking up in front of the cameras and shooting Oswald, that really sunk our cork for good.
What do you think that people are going to come here 50 years from now, 100 years from now, and beyond? I mean, not to Dallas, but to here.
To the spot where, will they be interested in the Kennedy assassination? I don't know, they might be, because my nieces and nephews are very interested in it. And, but Jacqueline Kennedy is, I mean, they remember Jacqueline Kennedy, so, and Carolyn Kennedy's still in the news, and their son. So I don't know. I would think yes, because Dallas is pretty good at promoting, and I think they'll promote it for, I mean, there are a lot of tourists who come here to see this. So what you're wondering is, will tourists be interested in the future? I don't know.
Do you ever get harassed out here by the paper salesman vendors?
One guy. I mean, I wasn't harassed, but my sister fell for it hook, line, and sinker. She just said, oh, I'll buy it. You know. And he said, be sure to buy it for me. She said, I'll buy it when I come out. And then he said, be sure to buy it for me. I only saw one, and I just ignored him. And then she stopped and went back and bought one from me. She said, I might as well get it now. So, kind of, I guess. I wouldn't have paid any attention to him.
Why is that?
Just another promoting. But I like the museum. I think the museum is good at the way they present things, and it's more objective. I like the way the museum handles that.
So, after talking it through and whatnot, who do you think actually decided to have the president killed?
Who decided?
Did Oswald decide himself? Did somebody else decide?
Well, you know, that's what the Warren report says. But it seems so likely that the mafia would do it. So I'm still up in the air. I'm not sure, but I can certainly see the mafia putting a price on the president's head.
How do you think that would be successfully covered up this whole time?
Oh, maybe they just kill off, you know, like building the pyramids. They just killed off the people who were involved. But at the time, I had total confidence in the Warren report because I couldn't see why the Warren Commission would lie. But also I see they didn't have the technology that we have, so they were hampered maybe.
So you think they did act in good faith?
Yes, I do. I do. I just don't think they knew it as much as we know now and didn't have all the information to glean and come to the same conclusion. Would they come to that same conclusion today? I don't know. I know Jacqueline Kennedy, when she was getting out of the, when she's crawling out and they said she's trying to get this Secret Service man, she was trying to leave the limousine. And she said, they're shooting, my God, they're shooting at us. And she was trying to leave. But you don't hear that now, so why not?
Why not?
I don't know. So the media can pick what they want people to hear and what they don't want them to hear.
And why do you think?
I think that Jacqueline Kennedy was an icon, and they wanted to believe, they would hate that somehow she might come down a step in everyone's estimation if she was trying to escape the car instead of grab the Secret Service man to come help her with her husband. But the way my husband talked, that once, I think at first she leaned towards him when he was first shot, and then the second shot, and the way my husband talks about his brains and blood were all over that car, that she thought, my husband's gone and they're shooting at me next. And they got Conley, and, you know, she was scary. I would have done the same thing. I think that's a natural reaction. But nobody mentions that.
One other thing, you heard about the effort to try to rename a street for Kennedy?
No, I haven't heard that. You mean this street right here?
Different people have different
Elm
different
or
streets. Elm and Main are both mentioned.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
What do you think of that idea?
Well, I can see why they want to do it, because that would sink it in everyone's mind as historical. But then it's different. It's a different name than the historical triple underpass, Elm, Main. So I wouldn't want to change it. If they changed it, I wouldn't be upset, but I wouldn't try to change it, because then when you go up there and they say, well, Elm was renamed this, why not just keep it Elm? But I can see why they want to do that.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? Something I neglected to ask?
I think people don't realize, or they've forgotten, that Kennedy was the first Catholic president. And that was very significant at the time. And nobody ever talks about that either. And it was such a huge thing. And I don't know why it was huge. I was younger. But that was something, and everyone was afraid the Pope would run America. Who, you know, they were talking, the grown-ups, and you hear, well, you know, if the Pope says do this, that's what they'll do, because they're Catholic. Because we'd never had a Catholic president. And of course, that after he was elected, that never came into focus. So, and that's, and my father, who worked with Time Life, I asked him if they knew what was going on with the women back then, why they didn't report it. And back then there was a kind of understood agreement between reporters and presidents that they wouldn't report any dirt on presidents. And now it's different. But back then you just didn't say anything bad. Like you didn't say anything bad about the Queen, I mean, and LBJ and all.
What do you think of LBJ?
Well, my stepfather, who interviewed him and was kind of professional friends with him, liked him because he was a larger-than-life Texan, you know, on his ranch in his Cadillac shooting deer, you know, or whatever, and going 100 miles an hour over his pastures in his special car, and the Secret Service men couldn't keep up, and you know, he just thought it was a grand kind of Texan thing to do. He thought he was a very cagey politician, a little bit shady, but he also wanted to do great things for America, and the Vietnam War just sapped him of all energy. But, you know, he did the civil rights. I mean, he did a lot of good things too, good and bad. Everybody does good and bad.
You mentioned politics earlier. I was wondering, do you find it unusual or at all interesting how the South has gone from almost a complete Democratic bloc to a complete Republican bloc?
Well, I know Texas certainly has. Dallas used to be a Republican island, and the rest of Texas was Democratic. And I do think that's interesting. I think the problem is that the Democrats have not come up with the right they don't see the side of their party that is the conservative Democrat. and that some Republicans, I think, would change over to Democrat if there were more conservative, like I feel. So the people they've had running haven't been, I think they've lost an edge there. There used to be a whole set of conservative Democrats. Conservative meaning, you know, just cautious about budget, things like that. And now the caricature of a Democrat, to me, when I hear people talk, is, oh, they'll just spend all the money. They'll just go in and give away money, and programs and entitlements and all that sort of thing, and then it'll be hard to change it once it's done. And they do that monetarily. They'll do that with the economics. They'll do that with the politics. They'll do that with everything. So that's kind of their platform. And that's kind of the image they project. And Clinton really, I think, his shenanigans hurt the Democratic Party a whole lot. And that the Democratic Party stood by, you know, it was a real blow.
So you see the Democratic Party is very different from the time of Kennedy?
No, I see it a lot like it. It's just you report on it now. You didn't report on it back then. I mean, Clinton wanted to be like Kennedy. Kennedy was one of his icons. So he was more like Kennedy than we knew at the time of Kennedy. He's handsome. And he's smart. And he's engaging. He's got a very charismatic personality. And, you know, people think, well, if he can't run his own household and keep his own life in tow, how can he run a government of the most powerful nation in the world? So there's I mean, it just seemed, and when he left the White House and his staff, and they played all those tricks and put porno on the screens and glued drawers shut, it just seemed like something out of college drinking buddies deal. It didn't seem like a statesman's staff. It was, and then they took the furniture. And then he let all those criminals go. Even the Democrats were disappointed. Really, Clinton, it's too bad. He had the potential to really do better, I think.
So what do you think of George W.?
I like him. I think he's very straightforward, and it's nice for a change, and you pretty much know what he thinks. And I think he was the man for the moment for the 9/11 crisis. And of course, nobody thought anything like that would happen. That isn't why he was voted on. But I remember when Clinton was in power, and there was we were talking about re-electing him, and I said, but he went to Canada and didn't serve in the armed forces. I mean, and he's going to be our commander-in-chief. And someone said, well, that doesn't matter. I said, well, would you want this man to send your son to war if we went to war? And they said, we're not going to war. And look at us, 3 years later. When I asked that question, 3 years later, here we are being attacked. And I was glad that Clinton was no longer president. And I was glad George Bush was.
Somewhat along those lines, how do you think the world, or do you think the world would be different if Kennedy had left?
I often think of that because we hear stories now how ill he was, that he was a very sick, physically sick man. And I forget what all the problems were. But it's an interesting, yes, I do think it'd be different. I don't know. I do think the Kennedy clan would, I mean, even now with Ted Kennedy and Chappadowick, he's still senator. So I think the Kennedy aura and charisma has a hold of the American psyche. And I think we as a culture have become more personality-oriented instead of character-oriented. and that the Kennedys are very charismatic, and their whole family has this hold on America, and so I think they would influence us in the way we think.
Is there anything else you can think of now?
I can't think of anything else.
Well, I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
Let me get back.
And he has those newspaper pictures that are different. I mean, he has those plates because he asked the man while he's working there, "You're going to melt these down? Can I have them?" And the guy said, "Sure." And so he got the plates, and of course he doesn't know what to do with them because they don't make newspapers like that anymore. But they're pictures that haven't always been shown.
Well, I'm sure you could try to sell them, or you could donate them.
I think we're thinking of donating them to the museum. We've got to get a value on them. What do you think? I do. Okay.
Well, it depends. If the horse is a good speaker.
Well, I guess so. I'm kind of partial.
I'm sure. You can tell me if you ever saw the Oliver Stone film.
JFK? Yes.
What did you think?
It was interesting. I'd never heard all that before. And you could see how that could happen, but I just movie makers are in the business, but he wants to do that because he kept them for historical purposes.
I will tell Stephen Fagan about you.
Is that his name?
Stephen Fagan is the person who does the oral histories here,
Oh, great.
and the person who's been helping coordinate things for me to get this room and stuff.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. And I will also give your husband a call to see if sometime we can get together.
Okay. It's more interesting coming from the horse's mouth. Business of developing grandiose theories and stories and putting them to film. So I'm suspicious of its validity, but I think it was well done. I mean, if that was the story, he told it well.
Have you read any books on the subject?
No, I haven't, although I heard something on TV, or was it a video? I can't remember. I don't get into it too much because it's all just kind of grabbing it. Everything's so different, and people come up with these wild ideas, so I kind of discount everything. But I did hear this man who said he worked for the mafia, and he was just past the grassy knoll and was hired to shoot the president, and shot the president too, and worked for the mafia. So, do you know who that was? Have you heard that? You have not seen that?
Well, I have suspicions about what it is, but there's several documentaries.
Are there? Well, it's a kind of documentary, I guess.